Today I'm going to show you how to create this beautiful Summer Meadow watercolour. It's great for a beginner and I will go through everything for you step by step. So let's go ahead. I'll pop this photo of this lovely Summer Meadow up on my community page so you can use that for reference when you're doing the tutorial. So what I've got here is a tiny bit of masking fluid. I've come on and dabbed to create a sort of random cow parsley effect just in this bottom corner, so that's going to give this a little bit of a sense of foreground and distance. I've got Cotman paints today. I'll go through the colours as we go along. I'm using Saunders Waterford. It's a cotton paper and it's rough. So I'm going to come on first of all with a little bit of water and I'm going to come about halfway down. I'm also going to use a little bit of gum arabic today. Now if your paper has a high size you might find that it's very easy to lift off, but with Saunders it's not so easy to lift off later, which is why I'm going to use a little bit of gum arabic. So about half a teaspoon has gone onto there. So it's gone onto the water and I'm just going to flow it around a little bit. Mainly that bottom section, it's just so it makes it easier to lift off the cow parsley later on. Okay, so I'll pick up my round number 10. And I'm going to dip straight in to some cerulean blue. So I've loaded my brush up with water. And I'm going to come in and create a little bit of a sky. So this is a circular motion I'm doing. You can leave little bits for clouds. Just keep pushing down as you're doing your circles. And that leaves you in control. Rinse my brush off, dab it off. I'm touching into a tiny bit of the colour called Purple Lake. This is going to come in further down as well. So I'm just dabbing in a few little bits. It's just giving a bit of variety into the sky. There's hardly any on the brush. I'm picking up hardly anything. I just want that little bit of variety in there. Just makes it more interesting. Then I'm going to swap to a small flat. So this is a 1 centimetre flat. Just check that's nice and clean. I'm going to dip in to sap green. I've got 3 colours here. So loaded with sap green, I'm going to dip into a little bit of ultramarine as well. So sap green and ultramarine blue. And I'm dabbing on vertically. Keep loading my brush back up. There's a bit of each on there. Dab vertically into the wet, but then I'm twisting around as well. So I'm getting different areas of different colour. You just have to keep loading your brush back up. This is a great way to do distant trees. So this is neat paint that I'm going in with. You're doing an impression of this photograph, so it doesn't have to be exact. Ultramarine and sap green. Coming all the way along. Dab, dab, dab. A bit more ultramarine in this mix. looks a little bit different in places. And then I'm going to dip into a little bit of sepia sap green. Again, the sepia is just giving a little bit of dark. And keeping that to that lower edge. As long as you've got a nice uneven edge here, it will work. So don't worry about this bottom edge so much, just make sure it's uneven. Dipping back into a little bit of sepia, really just to get these darker elements in. Ultramarine. I'm referring to the picture a little bit. Artistic license is a wonderful thing. You can see how these are all nicely softening out, and I've got this jaggedy edge at the bottom. That's fine, just what I want. A little bit more sepia, dab in, twist a little bit around, a little bit more sap green. Okay, so I'm going to dry that one off. So that's nicely dry now, and I'm going to come into this bottom section. So it's the same principle. I'm going to pop a little bit of water on. And about half a teaspoon of gum arabic. If you haven't got a gum arabic, you can do it without. You can have a go. It will still lift, it just won't lift quite as well. So I'm taking this half a teaspoon all over. Right the way up to that edge. I'm going to pick up my round number 10 again, and then I'm going to first of all come into a little bit of raw sienna. So this is coming towards the back. This is going to help give a sense of distance because the raw sienna is more of a muted yellow. So this can come towards the back. Give my brush a little bit of a rinse, and then I'm going to come into the sap green and bring that all the way across. Make sure my brush is loaded up with water. Bring these in. So the masking fluid is going to resist, so that's still going to be white under there. And I'm mixing that sap green a little bit through the raw sienna, so you've got a nice blend there. Just rinse my brush off again. I'm going to dab into a little bit of cerulean blue and just flick that through at the front. So I'm thinking that sort of upward stroke. We've got all these wildflowers to do. This is going to start to create that little bit of an upward stroke that you can see. You can choose a slightly darker colour as well, so I'm dropping down to around number 6. I'm going to come into the ultramarine blue and just do a few as well. So these are just upward strokes. Just starting to build up something in that foreground section. Okay, so I'm going to load my brush up with water, and I'm going to come in to the purple lake colour. I'm just going to start to randomly dab a few in. Try not to think about it too much. You don't want a pattern to form. There's a lot of beautiful colour in here. And because the Purple Lake is quite thick, and it's working on a light wash, it should just move outwards and create a beautiful flower, wildflower shape. The trick is to move fairly quickly when you're doing this. Rinse out, and then I've got cadmium yellow. So I'm going to dab in with that for these yellow flowers. Again, random dabbing. Try not to make a pattern. Try not to think about it too much. Just dab, dab, dab. I'm going to take a few more of the purple ones a bit further down. I've just spotted a few further down. I'm also going to dip into the sap green. I'm going to dab some of this through in the background, just a little bit. This doesn't need to be in flower shapes. It's just so tonally I've got something a little bit more to lift out when I'm lifting out the white later. So I'm just dabbing a little bit more in there. Okay, I'm going to dry that one off. Okay, so that's nicely dry now. I've just dabbed a little bit of water with my round number 10 into this leftover sap green. If you take a little bit of the sepia in, it'll just make it a little bit darker. And then what I'm going to do is start to build on to this base that we've got. So I've got a natural sponge here, and I'm going to use that to start to build up. So I've wrung it out, I've rinsed it, I've wrung it out really well, and I've got a very little bit of paint on here. What I'm going to do is start to dab and build up in the background. I'm going to build up these layers. So I'm being nice and gentle, making sure not an area doesn't get too wet. I'm just coming over all of this section really. It can be a bit lighter over the yellow, but all of this will warrant a little bit of build up. See that building up nicely. I can make a little bit of a bluer mix by taking in a tiny bit of the ultramarine blue. So if I want to have a little bit more that's a bit bluer further down, I can do. I really just want that nice covering at this stage. What I can also do is take on a little bit of splattering. So if I load my brush with water, then load it with the purple lake colour, I'm going to hit the side of my finger If you're nervous about doing this, cover up your sky and trees. But if you're close, it shouldn't go too far. And the beauty of random is it works. You can always have birds in the sky. See, I've got a bit up there, look. Just have a tissue to hand, or cover that up with a bit of tissue. So rinse that one off. I'm going to do the same with the yellow. I'm just checking my brush is really nice and clean. So I'm going to load it up with the cadmium yellow. Keep it really nice and close and splatter. So I'm just hitting my finger. Take a few down here as well. Yeah, I've still got a few blobs in the sky. Just dab them off a little bit. It's not the end of the world. Rinse again. And I'm going to do the same with the cerulean blue. So I'm loading up. Just hitting towards the bottom. An odd random blob again. Just get rid of those. And that one. Oh look, one up there. Just get rid of that one as well. Just dab him off. It will still work. Okay, I'm going to dry that off. And then we'll go on to the next section. Okay, so that's nicely dry now, and what we're going to do is work to create and lift out some of these whiter flowers. So I've got around number 6 and I've just loaded it with water, and I'm just going to dot in and start to take out some of the white flowers. So the gum arabic should have done its thing, and should mean that I can lift these out quite easily. So there's little tips, and little tips are you leave the water a little bit on the surface. That always helps. I'm just dabbing out random blobby shapes. You'll see in a second when I start to lift off. Come in and you can see where I'm lifting, I'm getting white patches. This is exactly what you want. It's going to look like the white flowers. Lifting beautifully. It's breaking up that edge as well. The dark helps accentuate the light flowers. I'm just going to do another. You can come over the top of some of the ones you've done, and that helps to lift them a little bit more. You can do more individual ones. The longer you leave the water on the surface, the more it will lift off. And you can come further down as well and start to lift some within this section. So don't just concentrate on the dark section. Keep loading your brush up with water and dab through. Those extra bits of green that we've put on should mean that you can see the lighter flowers appearing. It's just a way of doing distant white flowers. There are lots of different ways. This is one of them that works very well. If you did them all with masking fluid, then you wouldn't get that softness and that sense of distance that you get doing it this way. Another way to do it would be to take some gouache in when it was wet still, and that would give a very nice softness. So it's just different ways of utilising the mediums really. And this is working perfectly for what I wanted to achieve. A couple of really little ones up higher. That's lovely. I'm also going to take a little bit of the sap green. I haven't quite got enough left here. And a little bit of the ultramarine. And then I want to work a little bit more into the foreground. So this is with a round number 6, and I'm just stroking upwards. So just little flicks, just to build up onto the dry. You don't want it to be too strong. You want to vary the angle that you're going. If you've got a number 6 that's got a good point, then you'll be able to do quite a lot of this. Otherwise you can move down to a rigger or a line writer, which I'll show you in a second. If you struggle to paint to a point, then you can always turn upside down, because that helps, and then paint downwards. That's easier to paint to a point. Just building up a little edge. Let me show you with a rigger. So this is a long thin rigger. It's a number 2 rigger, and you could get away with quite a few different sizes. So I'm just making sure that it's dark enough by adding a little bit of the ultramarine into the mix. And then again you can build up, you get a much finer stroke. And we're really creating this foreground texture in that bottom third, or because I've turned round, it's my top third now, but you're just building this up. If it helps, you can run to a flower head. So a lot of these purple ones could be flower. You could run to a flower head. And that helps, you know where to go to. Just keep making sure that that colour's dark enough. If you're coming on and you can hardly see it, it needs to be a little bit darker with a bit of ultramarine in there. Just building that up nicely. Now in this corner where we've got the masking fluid, which I'm going to take off in a second, I'm going to make a few stems a bit darker. So I'm going to build up this one corner. Just get rid of that with my finger. Because there's a little bit more detail in, we can pop a few more grassy bits in and it will just work. So that's looking great. So I'm going to dry that off and then we'll rub the masking fluid off. So I've dried that now and I'm just coming on with my finger. There's only a few little bits of masking fluid on here and just rubbing left to right, just to remove those off. You can use a masking fluid remover if you want, which is like a hard rubber. If your fingers are a bit sensitive, but when it's a little area I can usually get away with it. And to check the masking fluid is all off, if you just feel with your fingers, you can tend to feel if there's still a little bit on there. It feels bobbly and raised. I think I've got it all. There we go. So that you've got these lovely little bits of light in there. You don't want to do too much with those. If they look a bit blobby, then I want you to take a little bit of your green with your rigger or line writer and just dot some of it through at the top. That will just give it a little bit of shadow and stop it looking too blobby. And then the other thing I want to do is I'm going to take some of that green. So this isn't too strong, I've loaded my brush with water and I want to help to differentiate between this yellow and green to give a bit more, it's going to give a bit of shadow. So what I'm doing is just coming on and coming around the yellow flowers, but then going higher. So it's giving it a sense of shadow in there, but it's also highlighting the yellow. You just need to make sure it's not too strong as you're doing this. And these little bits will then give it much more of a sense of distance. Just make sure that that top edge isn't too pronounced, and you can either soften it in or just break through it. And that's just giving it a better sense of, there's a little bit of shadow there and a little bit more definition. I'll take a little bit in here as well. Just to bring that through there. Okay. Here it is all finished, so I've just popped a little mount round so you can see. So we've got a beautiful summer meadow field that is suitable for a beginner to have a go. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please do like, subscribe and share my tutorial. Pop a comment on, tell me if you've enjoyed it or not. I shall see you next time, and I'll pop a video here for a beginner and a playlist for a beginner just here as well.